company and PotomacBeads.com and PotomacBeads.eu, and I wanted today to show you a little tutorial on some wire leaf earrings. So the wire leaf earrings that I'll be working with, you're going to learn a couple different techniques. The techniques that you're going to be learning is wire coiling, how to make an eye pin, how to open an ear wire, and generally how to grade and figure out exactly which beads you want in what location, as well as to make two matching pairs when you're looking from one ear to the next. The nice thing about these wire earrings, as you work with them, it becomes easier and easier to work with the wire and to master the wire, and it's a great practice. If you want to know the specific materials that you'll be using, below the video in the little dialog box that says when the video was published, we'll publish a list and a couple links there that you can purchase from me online at PotomacBeads.com and PotomacBeads.eu. To get started, we're going to go ahead and get our materials out and get ready with our pliers and our wire to create our lovely wire leaf earrings. To begin my wire leaf, the first technique that I'm going to show you is how to do the coiling of the wire. We're going to do the coiling of the wire with the 22 gauge and the 28 gauge wire. For your 20 gauge, for the outer portion of the leaf, go ahead and cut 4 inches of wire. For the 28 gauge, you want to cut 4 feet. Yes, I said 4 feet of wire. That's going to be used for the whole coiling as well as the catching of the little veins of the leaf. You do not need any pliers after you're doing your cutting and you're using your wire cutters to cut into the length. Then you take your 28 gauge, and remember it's really long off camera. I'm holding it at the end of the wire. I'm going to intersect and have the wire on the top of the 22 gauge, leaving about 1/4 inch tail with the wire going to the top. We're going to wrap and coil just like a coiling machine. You're going to wrap and coil and coil and coil away. I like to coil away from me. If you're getting your coils separating, you can just take your fingers and squash them together. If they start overlapping, you can uncoil and then recoil, pulling tightly. As I coil, it's difficult to show on screen, but what I want to do is actually push the wire almost towards my left hand. That way, as the wire goes towards the left, it butts up really close, nicely next to the previous coil. Again, if you do get it separated, you can take your fingers, just kind of push it together. The reason I'm coiling at the very end of the wire is because those coils will shift along the wire. As far as efficiency's sake, you want to coil close to the end because then you don't have as much wire to wrap around as you're wrapping. I'll show you quickly and do a demo of how quick I wrap my wire. And honestly, I usually do this standing up and not sitting down because I find it easier to pull all that wire through. Again, if I have that coiling section going over the top, I'm just going to fix it. Once you do the coiling, you want to coil 3 full inches of the coiled wire. You can always cut off extra if you want to make your leaves shorter, or you can do more if you want to make them longer. Approximately 2 feet of your wire of your 28 gauge wrapped around the 22 gauge in that coiling fashion will get you 2.5 feet of the coiling. So depending on your outer size that you want your leaf to be, that's going to determine how much of the coiling that you have to do. As I coil again, I'm just going to either take my needle nose pliers, hold the wire, and push the coil down on the project as I coil more. And again, if you need to, you can kind of squish those coils together. The object of the coils are to be nice and neat, so take your time if your hand cramps. They want them nice and neat, or you want them nice and neat against one another and against the 22 gauge wire. When it comes to wire and earrings and wire and just wire working in general, I think a lot of it is done sloppy, and that's one thing that you want to make sure not to do. So if you do have a sloppy area, I'm just showing you what it looks like when you pull the wire out. And you can then take your wire and rebend it. It's nice and forgiving. If it has a lot of kinks and bends in it, you can take a nylon jaw plier and rework it and pull it through that in order to make those coils nicer along the project. So again, 2.5 to 3 inches of coiling, which is going to take about 2 feet of your wire. So go ahead and continue coiling, and then we're going to get our outer frame of our leaf. Once you have your desired length of coiling with your art wire, you are going to go back to the beginning to that little 1/4 inch. And what I like to do is push it down towards the previous coil and then go back and spin that wire. You can hold it if you need to around the start. If you want to, you can also simply cut off the wire, taking the pliers with the flat side down and cut off that extra little tip of wire. Until I position the coils exactly where I want them to, I'm not going to squash down on the end of that wire. Ideally, if you are making a set of earrings, you want to do both pieces of this coiled straight piece at the same time. That way you know that your leaf formation is going to be the exact same size. I already have one completely done for you as the sample, so I am going to use either a ruler or just a form here to create and mimic the actual leaf shape. Once you have your leaf shape in mind, at the bottom, you're going to grab in the middle of the coil and do a little bend. That bend will be the bottom of the leaf. So I have that bend in the bottom, and you're just going to use your fingers because it's really soft wire. This is why even if you have kind of an arthritic finger or anything, this is a great easy project because the wire is so forgiving. I'm going to go in and form my leaf. My suggestion, if you have trouble with wire working or you're not exactly sure what shape you want to do, because you don't have to do a leaf, you can actually take a piece of paper, draw out your form like I did here on a piece of paper, and then mimic that as you're bending your wire. If you need more coiling on one side to make it longer, you can take the wire that's remaining, part of that extra 2 plus feet that's remaining, wrap it around here and start coiling down to the other side. That's what I did on this earring. That's the example, and that's what I'm going to do on this piece as well. And there's no right or wrong. You don't have to do that. That's just a method that if you don't have quite enough wire on one side, you can make up for that. So on the right hand side here, I have too much wire. I'm just going to take my wire and uncoil it a couple coils to make it shorter, to make it mimic the leaf that I already have. From here then, I'm going to take that short piece of wire there at the top, cut it down just a little bit, and take it and wrap it around the other side. I usually use my needle nose pliers, and there's no right or wrong way for this. You can use your round nose pliers to pull if you want. I'm just wrapping it around one time, and then I'm going to cut off that extra wire. You'll notice I still have that long piece of wire attached. I'm going to take it over the top there, making sure my leaf is to size, and then I'm going to take it and bring it down on the opposite side. Again, you have tons of wire that you're pulling through. If you know approximately how much wire you need to go, you can cut it so that way you're not pulling all of that wire through. It's going to be easier now for me to just coil and wrap around to get to my appropriate length with this shorter piece of wire. And again, I'm going to lay it on the leaf that I already have, making sure that my form is the same, or again, writing it out on a piece of paper and getting it that way. So I just took the wire right from one side to the other side, hopping over, and I'm going to coil down. As I end the two pieces together, I'm just going to take my needle nose pliers, now that they are here, and I'm going to pinch down the ends of the wire, making sure that it's not going to pinch at me, and also it's helping to hold the wire and the coils in place. At this point now I have that outer frame of my leaf ready to go. I'm going to tighten this around the top just for the look's sake and have that nice form for my leaf. Again, you want them to match, but they're from one ear to the other ear, so they don't have to match exactly. Also, I'm going to be mimicking this earring facing the other direction, so I'm going to have my longer piece of wire going opposite, so that way in each ear they're going to face towards one another. From here, we need to do that same coiling technique down a center piece of wire. That center piece of wire then will literally run along the center. So you're just going to repeat that coiling down the center. It's going to be about an inch, inch and a half for that coiling section. If you have a piece, and I have a piece that I already started and already finished, made sure that the coiling reaches from top to bottom on that piece. Again, ideally, as you're doing your earring, you're going to make your 2 frames side by side. Then you're going to pick up your 2 extra pieces of wire and coil along the center piece. I'm going to push that coil, then taking that central piece of wire, we're going to go right down to that V that we created in the middle. Take that bigger piece, that 22 gauge wire, and tuck it to the back of the design, holding it right at that point and pulling with some nice tension right around. I'm then going to cut off that extra wire and just tuck it right to the back. Again, I want to mimic this earring, so I'm going to have the extra wire sway towards the other side here. So you can see this wire is going to sway to the left, this one is going to sway to the right. As I make then my second leaf, that wire along the top here is going to go twist from the front around the top to the back and then get completely cut off. I'm going to tuck that around the back so we know that's not moving and not going anywhere. I now have my center wire from my one earring to my other earring. I have the sides completely done, and I'll play around a little bit with the shape before I start going in and actually creating my leaf design. After I have my exact shape in mind that I want to do, creating from one to the other, I'm going to go in and get ready to start with my seed beads. So again, for seed beads, you really can use anything. I have bugle beads here. I could have used slim bugles in place of the regular bugles. That would have given it a nice look. I also have 11 seed beads, 15 seed beads, and then the 2mm faceted gemstones to add a little bit of shine and a little bit of pop. So to start out, we're going to be using more of that 28 gauge, 26 gauge wire, depending on which size you decided on. And I'm going to take that wire, gather up some beads, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to start at the bottom and work our way to the top of the design. So we've already used about just under 3 feet of our thin wire. We have a little bit over a foot left that we are going to use to create the little spines or the little veins of the leaf. Again, you can do this as many or as few as you want, or you don't even have to do them at all. You can also decorate along the center bar if you want to by stopping and starting the coiling and adding beads along the middle. To start, I'm going to be mimicking, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my earring over to make it easier to see exactly where and what style of beading I need to do. For this design, the beads the wire is always going to come to the front of the piece, so that way it's a nice, neat look. It's mirroring itself, and every bend of wire that I do is the exact same as the previous row. So to begin, I'm going to start with my wire, giving again about a 1/4 or a 1/8 of an inch there. We're going to tuck the wire around the form from the top to the bottom, taking my pliers, then I'm going to pull the wire around, and that extra little piece that sticks out the back, I'm going to cut that down and then pinch that wire to the back. That wire then will disappear along the back, and I will not see it, and it will not grab on anything because it is basically pinched between the coils. Coming around the front then, I'm going to mimic the earring. Again, if you can, do one then the other, so that way there's no inconsistency. Add on the beads that you want to add. So I have my first is a 3 2mm in a row of that aqua, and then the labradorite, and then the aqua again. And one of the reasons that I'm using the 26 gauge wire, or you can use 28 gauge wire, is because these small gemstones do have really thin holes. So again, that mirrors the one on the left. When I come to the right, what I want to do is I want to go over the top and then come underneath to go to the opposite side. So I'm going over the top, taking my wire through the right side of the leaf formation, and then I'm going to go underneath. On the other side of the earring, I went over the top. So I'm going underneath that wire, and I'm going to pull it through nice and tight. Then I'm going to be coming down right along the bottom here. Along the bottom, I just have 2 beads. I have a 15-0, and then my aqua. Let those drop down right next to my piece and get them right there in that hidden little area. Again, the wire, just like it did on the other side, here where we're ending, just like we did when we started, we're going to end with the wire going over the top of the side of the leaf, coming around the leaf, and the wire is going to act like it's continuing up the design. So it's always going to be upward. Bring it towards the back of the piece. Take my wire cutter, cut off the extra wire, take my needle nose pliers so I don't poke myself, and bend that wire towards the back on both sides, making sure that it's flush with the project. There we have our first little section of our leaf, which is going to mirror itself on the other side. Now I'm going to go in and add my next section, and this is just going to continue the whole way up the leaf. So again, coming over to this side here, I'm going to go approximately the same distance along the coiled edge, so you can see if you want to, or mark with a ruler. I'm going to take the wire around that coiled edge, and I'm not worrying too much about the little pieces of wire because I can always cut them off. It's now time to add the next beads in line. So I have my 2 2mm, and again, there's no right or wrong as far as what beads you do, and whether or not you want to be creative and use 2 different beads or different patterns on either earring. That is up to you. This also can be done nicely as a pendant, and you can make it fuller or you can make it like I have it here. Coming up the pendant then, same deal. I'm going to go through the right hand side. Then I'm going to tuck my wire underneath the cord or the middle. Bring the wire down, and that thin wire allows us to pull nicely. And then I'm going to go over to the opposite side. Over on the opposite side then, it's a bugle bead and a 2mm. And then just to repeat on the side here, all I'm going to do, and this will also help you determine if little sides need to come out on your piece, because you want to get that in the same formation. So once I have those here, I'm going to go over the top of that coil, through the side of the coil, or through the side coil, and keep it right nice and close to itself. Bring that wire towards the back, cut off the extra wire so it ends in the back, pinch that wire down, go over to the other side, and also pinch that wire down, making sure that it's complete. So here when I flip over, I have the first 2 sections of my beads that are added, and I'm going to continue going up adding. And rather than you having to watch completely as I add, I did another row with bugles. Then I did a row where the left is bugles, the right is not. Then switched it, right has bugles, left does not, and continued going up, just picking at random that pattern of crystals and bugles and 11s and 15s that I put on. When I get to this last section here, I'll rejoin you guys and show you how to then finish off the top of your leaf. As you finish up having the sides come down one at a time, right then left, what I'm going to do is actually just come down the one side. So you can see kind of how they curve there, and I just have one last strand on the wider side. So to do so, just like we've been doing, I'm going to go around the side here of the project from the front, bending to the back, and then pulling it in and under. I'm going to mimic about the same distance as the opposite side. And once I have that tucked around nice and tight, again, cut off that little tiny piece that's left. Bend it towards the back. Again, I'd always like to waste a little bit, then poke my finger and injure myself. So then I put on my crystal and the bugle. Let that fall down on the piece. Bringing that then towards the middle. Wrapping around the middle from the front towards the back and under. As I do so, I just want to, along the back then, put a little crystal just for a little color right there at the top. So I have one more of my 2 that I'm going to add and drop that down. As I have that 2 millimeter that I want to add then, I'm going to take the wire right along the top, and I'm going to coil this extra wire. I have at least about 2 inches that you want in your hand. I'm going to coil this extra wire around those wires at the top. So that way at the top it's just more of a nice little coiled look. Finishing it off around that base wire and then trimming down my pieces. Trimming down that piece and then the piece that I was working on. Again, with my pliers, I'm going to tuck that wire right to the back of the piece. And then same at the top, tuck that wire to the back. Before you finish then, what you want to do is go through the piece and make sure that any of those wires that you may have kind of sticking out, that you go ahead and tuck those wires, that when you take your fingers down the sides, you're not getting poked at all. So if you have any that are kind of sitting up, take your pliers and just tuck them in. As I get to the end then, all I want to do is bend my wire off to the side. With this earring, I had a bend to the right, and then I'm going to take my round nose pliers, hold in, and make my tiny loop. With this side, I'm doing the opposite, so I bend it to the left. So I bent that wire to the left, and then I chop off the extra wire. Make that loop, and that then shows you how to do the eye pin that those earrings are going to mimic from one side to the other. Now, what I need to do is actually make my ear wire. My ear wire is going to be made out of that same 22 gauge wire, and I have some left here. The first thing I'm going to do is take the very end of the wire with my round nose pliers and make a loop. That loop is going to be the ear wire portion that's going to attach to the earring. From here, you can use a pen, you can use your finger, you can use a round nose pliers, and you're simply going to bend the wire around and into an earring shape. Again, you want the 2 to match, so whatever you do with one, you want to make sure to do with the other. 22 gauge wire is going to be great for this, that it fits through most ears and it's not going to aggravate you. If you do have ear allergies or know the person that you're giving this to or making them do, you can use preformed stainless steel ear wires if you want. After it's about 1/8 of an inch lower than the actual eye pin, I'm going to chop off the extra wire. You can use the round your wire tool if you want to thin out that wire, or just to file the wire down a tiny bit so that way it's not going to poke as you put it in the earring. Then I'm going to take my eye pin, bend it open to the side, slide on so that my leaf is facing forward, and close that up. So that's the correct way to open the eye pin. So we've learned a bunch of techniques: how to do the coiling, how to wrap around and keep the wire nice, how to make them match, as well as doing eye pins and attaching to ear wires. These earrings are going to be a great piece that you're going to have a lot of people ask you if you made them or where you got them. They're a complimentary piece of jewelry that I think you'll really get a lot of wear out of. So as you continue to, keep in mind that this is not just a video on how to do a leaf. It's a video on how to do the form, how to do the techniques, and then how to kind of make it your own, make them mimic and match, and use a different array of seed beads, use a different style, form your own formations. You can bend around different objects like actual spools or things that are rounded. So keep in mind that this is the technique of doing the coil, forming a form, connecting pieces of the form together, doing a nice coil job to connect beads, doing the eye pin, and then connecting to the earrings. Thanks so much for joining me today in this tutorial, learning to make these wire leaf earrings. I hope you learned a great number of techniques and got over some of the humps of wire working as you were creating this. And if you're not used to doing wire working, hopefully you get involved and become a wire worker. Keep in mind, you can always shop with me at PotomacBeads.com and PotomacBeads.eu. And again, the list of the materials that you need is below me here in that little box that has the description of the video. As always, you can keep up to date with us on social media, on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and all of those great, wonderful design places. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Again, you can give a little thumbs up to this video if you liked watching, as well as give us a little comment and tell us exactly what you learned and why you liked watching the video. Thanks so much and have fun creating.